And then Jay, tell us about you, who you are, man.
Yeah, real simple. Jay Poole. I'm with a company called Cloud Reformer. I'm in charge of business development and assistant marketing as well. I've been in the business development industry for 15 years, roughly, making cold calls. For some reason, I like it. Um, been in a different industry. I came from the employee engagement industry for several years before I jumped over to technology, but I have a real strong technology background, so it was a good fit. That's me, and I'm a grandfather.
Wow. Where are you based, Jay?
Greenville, South Carolina. The company is based out of Atlanta, but we've been virtual for years.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Sara.
Yeah, great. So Sarah's my name. I worked in sales for almost 20 years now. I'm really passionate about sort of the psychology behind it all. And I've been in different kind of roles, but mainly I've been business to business. I've been focusing on systems the last 12 years. So sort of supporting salespeople in different ways. So CRM, marketing automation, lead generation tools, video tools for sales, like everything that's within sales, I love. And I'm just really happy and excited to be here. And especially since I actually know a bit about the company that we're going to hear a pitch from, I'm excited. So yeah. And I'm in Sweden, by the way.
Great. David.
What is up, everyone? My name is David Weiss. Currently work at Outreach. Also side hustle with Dave Kennett's Replays and Dale Dupree's Sales Rebellion. And then personally, I've written a book called Your Definitive Sales Career Guide, and also have a podcast called Psych and Sales, where I help people in sales with kind of the mental health challenges of our profession. So I just repped like a bunch of different brands. So, good for me, I guess there, but good. Thanks for having me on, and excited to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Eryn.
Hey, everybody. So yeah, I'm Erynn Bell, based here in sunny Los Angeles, California. And I'm a director of enterprise sales for Degreed. So I look after parts of Southern California and Nevada, essentially helping companies build a world-class learning and development environment that allows their employees to really own their own careers and development, and also allows the business to align the skills of their people and the development of their people to sort of the top growth opportunities that they have available.
Awesome. Are any of your pets going to visit us today or no?
They're sleeping because they kept me up all night. So they have to have their rest,
Cool. I know they've made appearances before. So now we get, did anybody want to volunteer to be, or did you have a preference who your victim is?
I don't. I feel like David's always a good one, but whoever wants to volunteer.
Okay, well, yeah.
Whatever you'd like, Erin.
Yeah, let's go with David. So you're gonna, what you had mentioned in your background here was you're gonna be cold calling. So David's an SVP of Learning, Financial Services. He knows there's some online banking. There's disruption within that online banking, and then you had a whole other great list of pieces around. So he's got 2,000 employees. So do you think he has any idea about, just for some context, do you think he has the idea about who you are or your company?
I don't think so, no. I think that he's probably confused as to what Degreed does. Are we a content provider? Are we an LMS?
Would you have had any like outbound email to try and get him?
Yeah, so basically, I sent him an email last night. I'm calling to follow up this morning, and I've done some research that has given me an indication as to why I should be calling up on them.
Okay.
Erin, in that email that you sent me, did you list, that you would be calling? Did you list some things like, here's what Degreed does, here's why I think it's important to you, here's the value it brings to you, that type of thing?
Yeah, basically I reference what I'm going to talk about in the call, which is an article that I saw one of your leadership talking about stuff. So, yeah. Cool.
And do you want to like in this choose your own adventure? Do you want David to be like more on the cranky scale, or kind of on the it's Friday? He's a bit more open to a cold call.
Yeah, let's say that L&D people tend to be very friendly and really open. They tend to lead you down the garden path because they're learning people, so they're interested in learning about what's out there on the market. But also keep in mind that COVID's happened, budgets have been slashed, and they might be a little bit scared to open up a conversation because they're not sure that there's budget or an opportunity. They don't want to ruffle feathers necessarily.
So
Right.
you want me to be nice, but throw some objections at you.
Yeah, go easy on me.
That's what I'm hearing.
Like put myself out there.
Cool. And have we connected on LinkedIn or any other mediums besides one email and this call?
No, this is just the one email in this call.
Cool. Good.
Okay. Should we go?
I'm ready when you are.
Trying to stall. Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna pretend I'm distracted and I'll be over here typing.
Okay. And scene. Ring, 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 ring.
This is David.
Hey, David. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
So excited. Has it been a good week for you, David?
Yeah, good so far. Who's calling?
Yeah, this is Erin calling from Degreed. Are you familiar at all with our company?
Erin, did you send me an email yesterday?
I did. Oh, I'm glad you found it. I saw that you had opened it a couple times, so I was hoping you had read it and not just moved it to your spam folder.
Yeah, voice with a name. That's fantastic. No, not in the spam folder yet. I haven't read it fully in full transparency, but I got a few nuggets from it. So, you caught me in between meetings. Like real quick, what can I help you with?
Yeah, absolutely. Know that you weren't expecting my call. So Degreed, we're an upskilling platform and career mobility platform. So the reason why I'm calling today, David, is I recently came across a Chief Learning Officer article that featured your CLO. She was talking about the demands that new open banking deregulation and digitization is placing on your industry and specifically your organization. So again, back to why I'm calling, I've been having a lot of conversations with L&D leaders like yourself in the LA area on the topic of retaining top talent given the rise of competitors in this space. Curious if this is a focus area for you guys in 2021?
If it's a focus area for my COO, it's going to be a focus area for our business for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious, have you guys had any conversations about initiatives going into 2021 to support this?
I'll be easy. It's been a topic of conversation. I wouldn't say it's been a deep dive though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you said that you are creating and implementing employee development programs that are supporting your bank's succession planning. Understand when that typically happens, there's sort of the retirement of a certain sect of the employees and then new employees coming in. So that knowledge transfer is really essential. Also understand you guys are implementing a new online banking system. There's a lot of disruption that happens there. So could assume that there's probably a lot of training programs happening around there.
Yeah, it's definitely busy. We've got a lot of things going on and what you're seeing on my LinkedIn profile is accurate.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to kind of talk to you just for a moment here to see if there's an opportunity to have a larger discussion, David. What we found at Degreed is that if you are providing clear and transparent career frameworks, plus the ability for your employees to tie their development to career growth, they're 5 times more likely to stay with your organization. We also understand there's a difference between learning a skill and having a skill. So that training that happens, a couple times a year versus that continuous sort of opportunity to put those skills to work. At Degreed, we have truly introduced a true opportunity marketplace. So you can sort of tie learning to skills and skills to opportunities. We're working with your peers in the market, Bank of Montreal, Capital One, MasterCard, and Bank of America. Would it be interesting to you, David, to schedule maybe a 30-minute discussion where we can do a deeper discovery into the challenges you guys are experiencing and mapping that back to what a solution like Degreed could provide?
So can you connect a few more dots for me real quick? Like back to the couple priorities you saw on my LinkedIn profile and that article. I like the concept of 5 times more likely through continuous improvement for the knowledge to stick. What are some other main things? Like what would be some impact specifically for me?
Yeah, definitely. So oftentimes when we see digital disruption, the actual jobs or the skills of your people are changing rapidly, right? So if you're moving from in-person banking to online, a lot of the skills that your workers may have may not actually suit the online new environment, right? There might be new skills that are emerging. What Degreed has found is being able to inventory the skills of your people to really understand where those gaps lie in sort of this new world that they're operating in, can provide you lots of tactical information on what types of training is needed, but then also what is what your people are interested in learning, because you can actually go into the system and see what skills are emerging, and then tying those again, like I said, to new opportunities. So instead of having to do a restructuring of the organization and laying off people, hiring new people, you can actually move people internally into those new opportunities, essentially doing more with less, or getting the most out of your people.
Okay. So Erin, do you guys work with other banks?
Yeah, so we actually started with Bank of America. They actually helped us, even create our platform as we see it today. Lots of their employees actually now are at Degreed and are employees ourselves. But we work with Citibank, Bank of Montreal. I think financial services is probably the industry that we work the most with.
Cool. So because of that, I'm hearing there's not a huge lift for me, and you already have all the typical banking skills mapped, all the future state ones. You've done this before. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have about 8 million users, and we've mapped those kind of skills and career taxonomies. So you can, you utilize a lot of that to, like you said, not have to do a lot and really amplify the impact that you have. So you can essentially, David, for you, save time. Instead of building out those curriculums, et cetera, you can spend more time on the strategy, the things I'm sure that you enjoy doing more.
Yeah, I'd be willing to give you 30 minutes to hear more about that.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, David. Well, I'm just going to pull up my calendar if you have a minute. Let's get that scheduled. It looks like next week I have some time on Tuesday and Wednesday from about 8 a.m. to noon. Would any time within that work?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, perfect. I'm going to shoot you that calendar invite right now, if you don't mind just accepting that while we're on the phone.
Yep, I got it. Accepted.
All right, perfect. I'll send you over an Uber Eats gift card for coffee as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right, we'll talk next week. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye. And end.
Cool.
I guess you want to go ahead and critique, or
Yeah. Just give her your
I'm going to
feedback.
compliment first, because that was a good cold call. And David did a great job of not being disinterested, but growing interested as the call progressed. Erin mentioned everything she should have mentioned. She was short and to the point, very aware of his time, asking for the 30 minutes. The big thing I have a hard time training people how to do is to ask for that calendar commitment before you get them off the phone. That was done as well. The only criticism I have, if anything at all, is if a BD's making the call, you're qualifying the lead. So you don't have to go into much detail as you did. But if you're the sales rep qualifying the lead, then you did everything right. But as a BD, we typically will go in and qualify the lead, get the interest there, and then get them on the phone again with the sales rep as we hand them over to the AE. But that's it. I thought it was great.
Are you on mute, Erin?
Oh, no. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think something that we're working on here at Degreed is pushing our BDs to qualify a little bit more, because typically they will just kind of go for the meeting. And what we have found with that is that we get a lot of no-shows. Trying to focus on that.
Yep, that's a big problem. It's a huge problem, and you get sales reps to get very frustrated because they don't have the appointment set up and they're not there. So yeah, you're right, absolutely. So you're just fine tuning it.
Thank you.
Just a couple things and I thought it was really good. You earned that meeting. The couple things that I would say, just to tighten it up for you. Yeah. One of the early pieces on, you asked around that article the CCO wrote. You asked, is it a priority of the business? Not necessarily is it a priority for you. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece where if you could got a quick yes or no and then drill down. The next was tying it a little closer to their objectives. Like I went back and kind of had you do that. And then I went back and had you do that for the banking industry. So just bringing some of those things to light a little sooner and being just a little tighter on, here's exactly how it can help you. I saw on LinkedIn, this is what we do. By the way, we do this for other banking industries, so no, it's not a big lift. And then, you know, what you did as far as closing for the rest of the call. The end of the call was perfect, exactly how you did it. I would just tighten those up a little bit and it'd be really strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not everyone is going to be as generous as you are. So I think just getting to it straight to the point is the best thing at the top of the call. So appreciate it.
Sara.
Yeah, so great. I loved your intro, like happy Friday and nothing more. Like I love that. That was so good. He was just like, who's calling me? Like, who are you? That was a really good way of sort of disarming the situation. So I love that. And I also think that the call overall was really good. Like you're really good at this. I just want to make that sure because I know I had my first session with 5 on Friday. I had like, oh, be nice as well. Like I had that conversation coming up because I dove straight into the critique of it all. So I'm not going to do that now. So I'm just like laying it out that you're really good on the phone and you've done your research, which I feel as a person who gets a lot of sales calls as well and has been working with this for such a long time, I feel like just show the client that you're engaged with them. Like, do you give a shit? Like, that's important. For me, that's important. So I think you really had that nailed. Obviously, you put up the entire scenario yourself, but I'm guessing that you do this when you call out, which is awesome and not that common as you would love it to be, but it's not. So good on that. And again, what I'm lacking, and this might be sort of me lacking knowledge in what you guys do at Agreed, but what I'm lacking in the scenarios is sort of a bit more about sort of nailing him into a corner about what he's interested in, what he's challenged within, what his goals are. That's what I'm a bit lacking. Like you're talking about the business in the whole. You're not talking about like, what are you going to get fired for not achieving? What are your real pains? Like you're not diving into it. And maybe this is a structure or method change, because for me, when I actually get time on a discovery call, he did flag he had a little time between meetings, but when I get someone's attention, I'm going to use that to qualify and I'm going to do it hard because I feel like it's all about sort of understanding exactly what he would want to achieve. And from this call, I didn't really get that full understanding of what is actually paining for him. Is it saving time? Is it increasing skill levels of his team? What is actually the pain? And is there a pain? And obviously you can go into that in the meeting, but I was lacking a few questions about sort of, what are you focusing on 2021? Like, what is your potential pain? Or is there a pain? Or is everything just rolling around as it should? And also sort of the positioning of the article, how are you connected to that positioning? That would be a question. The need expressed in the article, do you feel that in your own team, or is that something that's separate from what you're doing? So a bit more of the questions about what he would learn, and also go back to how him would like to learn and develop himself. Like, would you like to have just like one session and then sort of move forward? Would that teach you anything as an individual? No, probably not. That's why degree is important, because you have that sort of follow-up happening, the accountability of your own training happening. So I felt like I'm lacking a bit of understanding his needs and issues. So that was my feedback.
You sparked a question that I think, and I want to kind of see what the group thinks of this. This is maybe a little bit cheesy, but if I called and I asked David, understanding that, you are in charge of new hiring orientation, officer trainee program, mentorship programs, and emerging leadership programs, what are 3 things that I could, or a solution could do to make your life easier today, to kind of frame it?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I would say it's a good question. It could be a bit more short though. Now they're taking.
Let me say this, Erin, because in my background, one of the questions I like to ask people, and it seems to work fairly well for me over the years, if you got them engaged in a conversation, and you say to them, if you could change one thing within your job factor or the things that you do, what would it be? And now you're forcing them to think. And a lot of times they'll come back with some kind of pain point that you can focus on some more. Not always. Sometimes they'll tell you it's perfect, go away. But the point is, it might be some form of that type of question you could put out there to get David to just dive right into what he's frustrated with.
I'm vacillating on that idea, and the reason is, and you both are right, if I had a deep understanding of what degree did.
Yeah, right.
But because I don't, I'd probably pull that back a little bit and just say, hey, I'm noticing on your profile, I see that you're tasked working on these things. When we work with people in your role, typically this is what an engagement looks like. This is their challenge. This is what we help them with.
Mm-hmm.
Then transitioning to, is that a priority for you? So just a little bit tighter, connecting their profile to their persona, to what your business helps that persona with, and then validating if it's a challenge.
I like that because some of the challenges with L&D and I think HR in general, so there's a couple things. Certain organizations' titles can be confusing. So you could be, have 18 senior HR directors, or they may not have a big presence on LinkedIn. It's not like sales and marketing where they're actually building personal brands. The thing I do see though is what I sent over to you guys, where they actually line out what their actual role is, and they typically are pretty good at doing that. They also will put in, experts in, this LMS or in this system. So it's very focused on that. So I like what you just said there, David, because I'm not going to be able to like find a really cool article and be able to tie that back, like that Josh Braun sort of hyper personalization. But I think sort of more of that, I think Justin Michael, what does he call it? Relevance at scale, I think is more relevant in the L&D space, in what you just said there. So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll be quick and I'll turn it back to you. Look, when someone calls me, what I'm trying to understand is, do they know the challenges that me as a person in a certain level of a business is faced with? Do they help people like that solve challenges? What do they do for people like that? And then do they know my industry as well? And so I'm looking for kind of those two big things. And if you can nail who I am, what I care about, and the problems I face, and you help others in my space fix that, okay, maybe it's worth a chat.
Like that.
So I have two, I kind of three. The first one, Jay, when you talk to people and they say everything's fine, you must call their BS, be like, impossible, because then I want
you. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The first thing I'll say, not in a kind way. Yeah. I'll tell them you've got to be the most perfect organization that exists. Right. But they're blowing me off. I know they're blowing me off. So I'll follow that up with a quick, okay, look, it's obviously not a good time for us to talk. I'm happy to sit back and stay in contact, get connected on LinkedIn, whatever, or change the subject even, just to get them to communicate a little bit more. And then it circle back again, and usually they'll open up.
Yeah. So Erin, so the two things I'm thinking of are like, one is, and I don't know what you guys all think about this, but like there's definitely people we've prospected that are, I don't like this term, I don't know what else you want to call it, but ambitious, but I've also heard ladder climber. So you can see it right on LinkedIn, right? Like they've gone to these places and they've talked about their achievements. And so if you can tell that's this persona, I think the way you opened up and all that was great. But it'd be like, hey, David, like, where do you see yourself in like 2 years, and what things would you achieve? And then I think you could use that to start tying it back and go, awesome. Okay, you'd love to do this, this, and this. I think we could help you with A, B, C, D. So I'm curious what people think about that. There's some risk there, but I think I hate to say it, but it's in a shallow way, you're kind of playing to their ego. Then the second one I would say is, again, I think how you came in there, like Sara said, kind of disarming it, but then maybe going straight to what David was saying in terms of just like, and I think Jay said that, like, hey, we've worked with, what's their role again? SVPs of learning at BMO, Capital One Bank of America. And I think going right to like, we've mapped like thousands of these processes in your industry, and here's like 3 or 4 things I know we've solved for these guys. Are those problems for you? Like, you would imagine some of those things have got to resonate. And in my career, I've found like those kind of efficiencies, for the lack of a better term, they're just like, yeah, if you've already done that for those 8 companies, they're like kind of that, really the light bulb comes on. So 2 things, curious what other people say. I mean, the ladder climbing one, I think there's some risk there, but let's be honest, right? I mean, we've all met each other on LinkedIn, and kind of that brand and telling people what we've achieved and what we want to do. It's not taboo. It's just not everybody's open with that.
I like the idea. I kind of believe in this like concept, a little bit of inception. Like you want to ask questions that lead someone down a path where you know the end, but they'll find it on their own. So if you know that based on the research you've done, that that person's multi-year goal is probably to get to something you can help them with, then where you're going with that is money. But they may throw a curveball at you, or this is my money, and you're like, oh, well, we can't help you with that. So that's the risk in that equation. So if you can do something to minimize that risk, it's a great question.
But if you know, for example, like they've climbed the ladder and they're in a bunch of magazines, like, you know, there's definitely a risk, but there's a risk on every cold call. So I mean, I guess it's just calculating the odds.
I think it goes back to how much research you do too. And if obviously it was Erin had done her research, sent her an email ahead of time. She knew what David's basic outline was and where to approach him from. She really had many angles to come at. But there again, if you don't do the research, if you don't find that one article, maybe David wrote an article 6 months ago, you didn't find it, you didn't get to talk about it. But if you looked a little harder, you might have found it and opened right up with that. Just something to connect with. My job, I try to connect with something to get something in common. I maybe underwater basket weaving, I don't know.
Yeah, I think something, so we recently went through value selling training here at Degreed, and I think you guys are hitting the nail right on the head with this, where there's a business win and there's a personal win, and you need to find both. And so what we've talked about, and this ties back to what Francois said, which is you can go and you can look, especially at the leadership level on someone's LinkedIn. They don't have to be writing about it, but they could be, you know, basically at an organization for 2 years, and then an organization at 2 years, and then an organization for, you know, a year. And you can tell that what they like is sort of that building out processes or, you know, strategy, and then moving on. So for their personal win, it's probably going to be very different from someone who's been at a company for 10 years and has started at, you know, an intern level and then now is in leadership. So I think you can find those clues to try to connect back with that personal win on that initial phone call, I think is the way to get that first meeting.
And
I agree with that. Francois, you're okay? I can go?
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think just doing a bit of research and coming to some conclusions that they might be wrong. Like when I do a bit of cold calling on specific target accounts that I value, that I really want to get into, and I don't find any connection, like I could see that they're a builder, like they're building and then they're leaving and getting to a new job, like that's a lead. I would actually basically open up with just like, it looks like you're a builder from your LinkedIn profile. Am I wrong? Like you could be okay with not being sure and just sort of asking that, because they will reply in a very sort of spontaneous way, just like, yeah, I am. Like, yeah, how did you get that? And then you can have a conversation like, we could actually help you continue to do the building process within the company you're at now, because we can do this and this and this. And I think being sort of a bit more open about that, I'm guessing here, help me out. That's a really genuine way of getting someone's trust, that you're not just trying to play it out like, you know, like you're guessing, because obviously we all are in all of our roles. And I love the Jay comment there about sort of asking about, so if you could change one thing. I have a stronger comeback on that, because I think Jay is a softer sort of a way of approaching it that's more soft than I am, because I'm kind of harsh in my conversations, where I ask what KPI would you be fired for? And his question was really good, because it's so much softer, but it's basically the same. Like the meaning of it is the same. Like, what would you change if you could change one thing? Because then you go into deep priority wise, right? So that was a really good lesson for me. And I'm not even on the cold calling setup. I'm just here to sort of listen and learn. So that was great, Jay. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, but I mean, just being open about us not knowing it. Like, it's okay that we're guessing. At least we're trying to guess, which is much more than most salespeople do.
Sarah, and I like the ego play there. Like, are you a builder? Most people won't say, no, I'm not. I don't like to build things. So like the ego play there of getting them to say, oh yeah, well, cool. And then to your point, and Erin, I think this could help you, since you guys have such strong domain expertise in the banking space, is saying, oh, well, you know, one of my customers in Bank of America also was a big builder, and this was a 2-year strategic plan that they had, and this is how we help them kind of accomplish that strategic plan. Does that kind of align with some of the things you guys are working on? Great. I'd love to talk to you about how we help them with that. That maybe aligns to what you're working. It's just that tying some of those things together for people will really help.
I love that, because I think one of our strategies at Degreed for a really long time was doing focus events and focus dinners, obviously pre-COVID, where we were connecting people to customers, so prospects to customers. And that was really powerful in setting meetings because they really understood from them an unbiased person. So I think what you just said there, David, is how we translate that in a virtual world. And I think the other thing to note is even when the world returns a bit back to normal, our buyer expectations are changing. And if they don't have to wait, a month or whatever to have a conversation, I think that we're still going to have to rely heavily on cold calling into the future. So it's something that we need to get better at as field reps. So appreciate that.
I don't think I don't mind the what would you get fired for KPI if you missed it, Sarah. I know it seems a bit harsh. I would maybe I think the builder one is a good one because I think your odds are pretty good, like David said, that then if they say no, then I don't want to say it's not a fit, but I'd say like maybe further down the conversation, maybe in a humorous way, like as a joke, like is there a KPI that if you missed it you'd get fired? That if they would answer that, I think that'd be a pretty good one.
You're probably right. The thing is, I wouldn't joke. That would be like a serious question because that's
But
how I am.
then you get that long pause, and uh-oh.
Yeah, and then they actually either they dive into like the real situation or they would just like be terrified and go away. So obviously I'm qualified because I think one of the things as a salesperson, when you're as strong of whatever kind of color you are, when you're that kind of person as I am, I think you need to sort of sort people out who can't stand it anyway, because we would never do business together. So I'm really like, this is a good way of disqualifying, but they might have a need though. So I'm kind of missing out because I'm a bit too red and sort of straightforward. But the joke thing would actually probably help me get the answers instead of just terrifying people. But I mean, it's just who I am.
I'm also curious for the group here. Well, and so two things. Like one, you could one way I think it would be interesting to frame that in like softer, if you will, would be like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think where this would fit into the conversation. It might be at the beginning if they're saying they won't take your time, but you could use it as almost an excuse to get more time of, well, just, one of my KPIs is I have to make this many calls and book this many meetings. Otherwise I'm fired. And if they kind of laugh, you might be like, what's a KPI that, you might be fired for? I don't know if they would open up, but on the research side, I'm curious. I mean, I would say most people you're prospecting, Erin, are on LinkedIn, but we all find some that just, maybe they have a profile, but otherwise it's super hard to find anything on them. What are your thoughts and everybody else's thoughts about going to that next level of like, okay, are they on other platforms, i.e. Facebook, Twitter, and then using that? Like, do you guys think sometimes that's a bit, people feel a bit creeped when you go, oh, I know you like this, whatever sports team. I don't know, like, I'm curious what you've done there and what you found.
I have found that in who I sell into, if they're not on LinkedIn, they're probably not on other social media. So, I mean, I've done pretty extensive like research. If that's the case, then I try to find something, about the company, kind of like what I did here, where it's like, I'm looking in their 10K, or I can pull out, hey, I saw your CEO said that, the skills of your people is the thing that's keeping him up at night, or something like that I can go to that. But I'll let the rest of the team kind of.
And I think everybody agrees the key is to get them to talk, even if it's negative at first. As long as they're talking, you're not being hung up on. And it gives you a moment. But I like the aggressive side of Sarah, because people that are energetic about their job in BD or sales, when they call me, it's amazing because I can feel the energy, and I almost let them get by with stuff because they're so energetic about what they're doing. There's no pause in what they say. They're not reading from a script. They've done their research on me, and they're very positive about it. So when you said that, Sarah, some people would probably be offended, but I don't think, even with David, I've only met him for 10, 30 minutes now, you probably would have got a big smile out of him.
He would laugh. He would laugh. Yeah, you're right.
It would have definitely changed the conversation and jumpstart something,
Yeah, you're right.
And Erin, your personality comes through very strongly. I think even David picked up on that very quickly. Probably already knows you, but as the caller, he allowed you to go into the long stream of a sentence and carry it through, which is unusual. A lot of times they'll interrupt you.
Yeah, I think
that yeah, go ahead, Erin. No, you go.
But there was something that resonated there, right, David?
Well, she told me to be nice. If she told me I was a VP of finance, that would have been a different conversation. but I agree, and I have a line with Facebook and Twitter and other platforms. I'm not saying I'm right. If you're not on LinkedIn, I'm going more to, and Erin, you mentioned earlier, you know, personas at scale. I'm going back right to, my understanding is your title is this. People I work with that have a title like that are concerned or working on this, this, and this. Is that a priority for you? Yes, this is how we help them. This is how we help in your industry. Any interest in talking about those things?
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question about that? Because I think that's so interesting. So I do, in my own sort of viewpoint, I do have a line as well. But I probably have like a bit of a weird transparency. I would probably call the person up and say like, I tried researching you, you're not on LinkedIn. And I couldn't stand going into Facebook and looking for you. So I have no idea who you are, but I know you have this title. Could we talk about that? Like, I would probably be really honest about that.
I like that.
And again, I think I have to add, so my entire career, I've always been selling to sales managers, because this is an important difference, right? So if you're selling to a finance manager or an HR manager, they will not have the same good reaction to someone like me as a sales manager would, because they feel like, I want a salesperson that's like her, like she has no boundaries. And that's why my approach works. When you're selling to someone else, it wouldn't. That's why I'm steering clear of like HR and marketing. Like, I'm not even going there, because my approach only works against really like straight to the point sales managers. I just want to make that clear. Like, I've kept in that area because I know that's where my personality works, and leaving me not to having to change it, because I like that way, and I can't really change it, I don't think. Probably I could a bit, but yeah.
The pattern disruption of, I tried researching you and I couldn't, but I believe your title is this.
Yeah.
That gets, whoever you are is going to give you a little bit of a smile and some credibility.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
But
Just being honest about it. Like, I tried, but you're not there. Like, you're invisible online. I don't know what's going on with you, but let's talk about it. Like, that's a good entry, I think.
go ahead, Erin.
Well, I was going to say, I think, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I think what I like about you, Sara, is that you are creative, and yes, of course, you know your buyer and your ICP pretty well because you've been in that industry. But I think that you can teach people a thing or two about trying different things and seeing what happens.
I try.
Erin, if I might ask, in your job right now, you're reaching out to looking at this guy's assistant VP employee development engagement, mostly HR roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did for nearly 11, 12 years, calling HR people about engagement solutions like, you know, length of service awards, that kind of stuff. Those people in HR are some of the busiest, most worried people in the world. They stay constantly stressed. And to get them on a phone, plus it takes a lot of courage to even talk to them, because they usually typically just shut you down unless you have a solution they need right away.
Right.
So that's commending right there. But what are the challenges that you face when you're making these cold calls? Do you reach these people?
Yeah. Right now, unless I don't even call if I don't have a mobile number. I might try, but I find that I'm getting voicemails. Even if people are going into the office, they're not even listening because their voicemails are just filled with sales calls. But I think that is a really big challenge. The other really big challenge is, like I said before, they don't want to stick their necks out right now. Even if they do find an innovative solution, they're scared for their own jobs right now. So, you know, L&D can sometimes be looked at as like the redheaded stepchild. So for us at Degreed, it's really about going as high as we can. And that's why we try to hook into the business driver, you know, what's happening at the top level of the organization and how do you support those initiatives? Because that's really what it's about a cultural transformation. It's about driving, you know, more market capture. It's about driving more growth and innovation and becoming an agile organization. So
Typically what helped me the most in calling HR people was knowing their company culture before I made the phone call. That's really, really critical. What do they call their employees? They call them staff? Do they call them teamwork, teams, whatever? Knowing all that before you get on that call so that they know you're familiar with their culture.
Yeah.
Knowing that, you know, a lot of the people you sell to are kind of in a high fear state, one of the biggest things that, I'm sure you guys do this, but I focus on de-risking. You need to create your solution to be such a low risk profile around change that people are willing to stick their necks out, because it's not a long, stick. So doing that through successful customer stories tied directly to their industry, and then also looping in people that deploy your solutions early on to talk about how it gets deployed, how it gets adopted, and how you ensure success through customer success executives. Like that would be a big play for me, as I bring in references and specific industry case studies, then my deployment leaders really soon, then my CSM leader really soon, and make sure that I've got kind of a clear path right there, and my leadership supporting me against that client, knowing those things and deploying those things. Like that would be huge for me, because then you're de-risking at every angle.
Yeah. I like that.
A couple of things that David, I like about what you just brought up. Often when I'm talking to people, like I don't sell a very transactional, like, hey, buy this, swipe your credit card, and tomorrow you use it. There's like a professional services engagement, which I'm certain there is with yours, Erin, right? Like probably what, like 3 minimum
and it's
year?
all included. So yeah.
But it's a long-term engagement, right? So like, I'm sure a lot of these people, they might be like, hey, the end state sounds amazing, but like what happens in the middle, they're either confused or scared about. And so I'd say, to David's point, like the sooner you can kind of give them some stories about, here's how your team would be engaged, here's how these other banks did this. But I think your earlier point was really interesting, David, around, if all the headlines you're seeing with this company is just like cost cutting, it might be like, okay, they're just going to see us as a line expense and move on. Whereas if all you're seeing in the press about them is them trying to brag about culture, or like, those kind of tones, I would say then it's like, how can you weave your product, or better yet, kind of how you've done this for another company like them, into that narrative. But then also, like to Dave's point, really like kind of help them go, okay, here you are today, here's where you want to be. Let me tell you a little story about how we brought this customer there. Because I think a ton of them, it's this like, they're really interested in getting over there, but the white space in the middle freaks them right out.
Yeah, because they have so much on their plate that they can't even think about bringing on a new project or anything like that. And I think a lot of the value that Degreed brings to the table is a lot of the stuff that you're busy with creating, Degreed can do for you through AI and machine learning, which of course is buzzy words, but it is really true, right? So you're trying to figure out all these curriculums and the trainings that you need and the learnings that your people need. Well, why don't you have a solution like Degreed, which will understand who your employees are, what they need for their job today, what their focus skills are, and what they need for their job tomorrow, so that you don't have to spend all of that time figuring all that out. The system's going to provide that to them on a daily basis, so you can start to think more strategically in your position. So that's sort of part of that value.
So can I ask something? How about getting a bit creative with that and just sort of entering before, like after you've sort of gone through why are you calling and who you're calling, what company you're calling from, how about asking, if I can give you half a day off every week, what would you spend it doing?
Ooh.
Because I think what you're talking about is like the effect on their time and their week and their days. What could you do instead? If you have one day, like half a day off, what would happen with your role? Because basically probably you guys can remove like probably 4 to 6 hours of work throughout every week. One part is sort of evolving them and how they should put up the curriculum, because you guys have experience with the industry. And the second part is sort of digitalizing and sort of doing the tasks that they are doing manually now, because most are, like, let's be fair, to move that over to something automatic that sort of pings them and keeps them informed, even though they don't have to do the manual work. So what would you do if you have half a day off every week? Where would you spend your time? What would be like, the sky is the limit here, you guys, right?
Yeah, I like that one. I
like
that.
I did want to
a
have
little pocket, Sarah.
one other thing, Erin, I didn't see David do this, and it would have been great if he did. Maybe he'll do it next time. What if he had said something to you like, hey, look, I just got off the phone yesterday with Fuel 50, I think maybe somebody competitor or whatever, right? How are you different? Right there, just right at you.
That's a really good, good question.
The VP of sales for Fuel 50 used to be my boss a long time ago.
I'd say, hold on one moment. Let me pull up Clue. Shout out to Jacob.
Shout out to Clue.
Yeah.
Well, so Sarah, I like that. I really like that one, and I think David. I'm thinking internally he was nodding, going, yeah, another kind of almost pattern interruption where it feels very real. Like I'm on the phone and I'm like, yeah, today's Friday. What if I was done at noon? What would I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that I think what I like about that as well is I've heard a lot of like you said, right? There's tons of buzz around the AI and the machine learning, and so some people they get excited when they hear it, but I think a lot of people they hear it and it sounds maybe interesting and complicated. And one person I'd heard, he just said basically don't use AI. Just talk about like not a virtual assistant, but frame it more like, okay, David, you have 4 people on your team. How many of them are building curriculum? And like basically don't use the buzzwords, but tell the narrative around how many people are doing these things. We've taken that away. And then maybe, so I'd say maybe even start with kind of Sarah's like, punch to the head, like, man, I could give you half a day off, and then tell them how. And yeah. I think that could be an interesting, opener.
And I think once someone would say like they would start evolving what they would do with that half a day, you could sort of follow up with, yeah, and then the next step would be most people getting freaked out because they have no idea what's going on in the box that we would implement to get you that half a day free per week. So let's talk about that, because that's what most people would be like freaked out about, because they have no idea like how would this support me. So let's have a conversation about that. I'm as a method in myself, I'm very much about like sort of putting every issue on the table and just talking about it. And I think like most people would be scared here because they have no idea what I'm talking about or what the black box would contain. So let's talk about how that black box can be more sensible for you, and how that would free up your time and what you could do with that otherwise. Like just having a very honest conversation. And I work in the Nordics where people sort of are really, they like decisions to be, everyone needs to be on the same page and stuff like that, meaning that I don't really suit there. But even there is like a fresh breeze. Like people want to have like reality. Just don't be a salesperson, be a human with me. And this is a good way of sort of opening up that conversation to that level.
I know one thing, you've opened me up to that half day off thing. That might be
right?
a good statement. David, if I called you up and said, can I get you half a day off a week? How would you respond to that?
Like, yes, please, thank you.
I mean, just as a conversation starter, it's
Yeah.
open it up,
But Sarah, I mean, you mentioned your I don't want to stereotype, but like, would you say, you sold in other time zones, like, would you say the directness is pretty common in the Nordics?
I would say the directness is really uncommon in the Nordics, meaning that I stand out. But in the European area where I've spent a lot of my time, so EMEA, then they're so much more comfortable with that. And I think sticking out or standing out as who you are is something that could be really good if you frame it well. But if you frame it bad, it could be really bad. Like it's all about sort of how you frame that setup. But one thing, again, coming back to who I'm selling to a sales manager who doesn't have time for bullshit. So we have to take that into account. And I think that the person that Erin is selling to is someone different. Like those are not the people who would match maybe my portfolio, the people I target. Do you agree with that, Erin, or is there a difference?
I mean, I think that anyone, especially right now, appreciates cutting through the BS, right? The fluff, because I think it's refreshing. So, I do like to think in terms of pattern interrupts. What are people not doing? So, if everyone's expecting L&D or HR people to be a certain way, maybe I try the opposite because they're not being talked to like that, and maybe it would be refreshing for them. So
that might be. I mean, again, with the framing, and I'm guessing you could frame it pretty well. I mean, not to be like this, but you have sort of an advantage because you are a person who is soft spoken. Like you have a straightforward attitude, but you're still soft spoken. Like you have that sort of tonality. So that would probably work well for you, I think.
Yeah.
I
look at it. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in my context, I'm an enterprise. So for me, I'm going to be within a geographical territory and a list of accounts for some time. So even if it's not me getting that meeting, I think a lot of the things that we're talking about now, I'm getting intel or information about this account that I'm going to be with for some time. So even if it's not feeding me today, it could feed me next year. So I think from like that, always good.
My question was, I'm just curious, not unrelated, but at the end, have you found the Uber Eats gift card helps in the meeting show up rate?
I would say that it just creates a sense of like, I respect your time, and just, I don't know, I feel like it's more of a rapport building for me than like an ensuring that they show up. It's more like, hey, appreciate it, want to show my token of appreciation.
I guess I'm just curious from the room here, like, if you use that, how do you find, or if you're being offered it, do you feel a bit of, kind of like Erin said, right? Like now, okay, it's like, well, I don't want to say you bought my time, but is there some guilt? And I'm sure there's data to back all this up, because people are selling this concept and it's working.
I think for me, when it happens, it's an obligation to continue with the next step, but a positive obligation, not one where I'm like, oh, great, now I got to really be at that meeting. It's more, they appreciate my time. I don't mind taking that next step since I committed to it. I'll show up.
I'd want to see the analytics on it. How many people actually use the card? And here's the reason why I'd say that: $5. I do Uber Eats all the time. That won't pay the delivery fee. So is it forcing me to then, spend extra money to buy something I wouldn't buy, or would I use it at all? So, when I'm giving people card, and Erin, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not trying to knock your approach. I just want to see the data and like how many people are doing it. When I'm giving those, it's normally something at least $25 to $50, and it's Amazon, not Uber, because of just the dollar for dollar, you're good versus all these fees that just add up. So that type of thing.
Yeah, I think mine always fees or Amazon.
Yeah. Can I pose a question? So this is sort of an appreciation of their time spent. How about your time? Because for me, giving something to show that I appreciate the time, I would probably, I never even thought about doing it, because they're getting my time, which is appreciation enough. So this is, but I'm talking about this because of the way that because I've been a consultant for such a long time now as well. So I actually charge for my time. So sitting in a room with me should be delivering value to them that exceeds Uber Eats like crazy. And it should be the same with you guys. It probably is. Your knowledge probably give them enough, right?
I'm going to start Venmo requesting them $50.
Like the pattern interrupt there. They're like, what the hell is going on?
I mean,
does that make sense? The whole idea about that, they're getting your time, man. That's appreciative enough. You're giving away your skills, because that's basically what you should be doing.
Yeah. Maybe nothing should be given. Maybe it just be appreciation for each other's time.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. We're giving each other a half an hour, 45 minutes. That is something that's valuable on both ends. It shouldn't necessarily needs to be something else given away as well.
But what I'll tell you, Erin, is you doing that at the end did not in any way secure that time with me. There was no additional that I felt to do something for you with that. What is helpful, and what I do see my SDR team doing that does a fantastic job, is 1 or 2 days before the meeting, sending a reminder. And then the morning of, 2-3 hours before the meeting, sending, hey, we're still looking forward to talking today. Just make it easy. Here's a link to the meeting invite. And doing a couple touches before to ensure someone shows up, that will get you a higher hit rate than, a $5 Uber Eats.
I totally agree with that. I do a video send out the day before, just sort of going through the agenda and just sort of speaking to this, what we're going to talk about. And I also always ask a question for them to send back. Normally it would be what would be your dream client? Tell me in an email so I can prepare my presentation. So that's just engaging them. And if at least I probably have a 95% of people showing up, that's never been an issue. And I think it's engaging enough, we're engaging them somehow. So I agree with that totally. Yeah,
that might help lower, Erin, that might help lower your no-show rate too, by just getting that follow-up to the meeting. Reminders.
How is your follow-up? Do you have a pretty good percentage right now on people coming for if you can book it?
this past quarter, so our fiscal year starts February 1st, it was pretty bad over the holidays. I think we weren't giving them enough of the what's in it for me for them to show up. So again, it's almost like, well, let's book the meeting so I can get off the phone. But I know with no intention of ever wanting to show up. So
Right.
I'm curious.
Like when you have that feeling, do you ever want to send an email like, I know you're not going to show up, so you better? Like, do you ever want to just like put them against the wall and just say like, because
I have a feeling you're not going to show up to this meeting. That's just what I'm feeling. How are you feeling?
You feel it. You do feel it though. I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and you
like,
can
you would
tell,
feel it
right?
in your gut. Yeah, you can tell. You can always fucking tell. Like it would be just like, this is wasting my time as well. Let's just agree on a schedule where you're actually going to show up. Otherwise, I'm going to be wasting my time. I think it's not. I mean, we all have a gut feeling about stuff. Just use it a bit more. Be a bit more like discussing with the client, because again, they're wasting our time as well, and our time is just as valuable.
Absolutely.
Even though we believe that they don't think so.
I always give them an
You
escape
start being a
clause,
human, like,
yeah. Always giving them an escape clause. When you ask for that meeting, make it clear to them that, you know, if you don't want to do this, it's okay. You know, just
it's the same when asking for a deal, right?
I'd like the day off. You'd like the day off. Let's just agree not to have the meeting. That works.
Well, I'll say this. Like, for my top account, and if I have like a CHRO, something that I've done, and this isn't scalable at all or at any company, but I'll do the executive whispering play, like, hey, I'm going to have my VP of whatever on this meeting, so I just want to make sure if we are booking this time that it is going to happen. You know, we're booking this amount of time out there. You know, typically we have to kind of go through this process, so that can be a play for those really top strategic accounts, I think. And something that
make sure they show up though.
And make sure they show up. But something that I think, David, you talked about on Scott Ingram's podcast, which is really relevant in our world, which is, can I go out with a hypothesis that's aligned to what's happening in their business? And what we call it at Degreed is more of that research roadshow. So a lot of times we're trying to book a strategy session with their team for that initial call. So again, we're going with a pretty heavy hypothesis of how we can help them. And I think that hits more than maybe going to somebody who's a little bit lower down.
Yeah, and I actually go so far as to put their picture on my first slide in a discovery call. Yeah. So I'll pull it up. They'll see their picture. They'll see quotes from their LinkedIn profile, from their annual report or something like that. So it's very hyper personalized to that. And I'm like, look, I've done my homework. This is what I think. I'm okay being wrong. But, you know, outsider looking in, this is what I'm seeing that you care about. And then people just open up. They just start talking. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it, because this is like the scariest part of the sales process for me. So I appreciate you guys allowing me the space to practice.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
I would say we probably agree on that though. Everyone feels it's scary. So do I. Like everyone does. Like it's the scariest part. We all agree.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
well,
IT people, it's horrible.
Well, I know we're almost at the top of the hour. I appreciate everybody making time. Erin being in the hot seat, you're champ. So thanks for all the advice, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll probably do this again.
And I'll send you guys an Amazon gift card.
$50.
Great. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.